Hello, I'm Kai Gear, the inventor of Clip Skins, and this is segment 1 of how to trim the skins, and this goes for whether you have the standard clips or the adjustable clips, so watch this regardless. This is the way it comes in the box, and throughout this whole process, rest assured, you don't have to worry about glue, so no cat here. You're not going to mess up. Just take your time. You can always redo things. Just don't worry about it. It just takes a little bit longer, or I should say, realistically, it's going to take you an hour and a half to 2 hours if you're taking your time, doing a good job. So this is a standard tail cam, and I'm using these skis because they demonstrate basically the outer limits of what a standard tail cam would be good for as opposed to a twin tip hardware setup. So I'm just going to engage that tail cam on the front there and roll it towards the tip, that tail cam on the rear. Take your tip loop and with the V, notch in the V towards the tip, just slip it over the tip and mark roughly where that is, feeling it through the fabric. Okay, and then I'm just going to transfer that mark right onto the back. So that's what my mark where my tip loop is going to be. So now we're just going to take our tip loop and using it as a measurement device, just align it center-wise, this way and that way, and mark our inboard edges of that. So that's where that's going to go. And then I'm just going to measure, 4 to 6 inches in front of that, so that's where we're going to trim the skin to lengthwise. I'll do that first. Trim the skin. We need some, I've picked some dull scissors here. Well, you can use your trimming tool also, and/or sharper scissors. And then you're going to, why don't I use the trim tool just to demonstrate, in case you don't have scissors. You're just going to zap that. Doesn't have to be super precise. You can always trim it up for cosmetics later. Just trim that right down there. This trim tool is nice and sharp, so don't worry about that aspect. You're just going to miter it. We're going to trim that up later. So now we've trimmed the front portion. We're just going to keep our tip loop in the same orientation, V facing forward. Slide our skin through it and get it to roughly where that mark is. Going to take our release paper. I'm just going to trim a little bit of this off. We don't need that much. That we got with our kit, our double stick tape, and peel that off, put that on about ½ inch aft of where the mark is, peel off the release paper, and just fold it back roughly on that mark. This is just a trial lengthwise, so at this point I'm just going to test it. I'll put the tip loop on as it should be on the tip, and we're going to bring it all the way back to the rear. And here you want, that's a little bit too tight because that's going to be too much tail cam tension. So I'm going to go back and just mark, so I have a reference point where I was. I'm going to bring it back to about there. Just peel it off. Pretty much standard, what you do with the regular skin at this point. And just realign it there. And have a little go at it. See how that feels. That's going to be just about right. So this is the right amount of tail cam tension. You should be able to more or less just engage that with the thumb pressure. Not super soft, not super light. And then of course disengage it with a little bit more pressure. So that's perfect. And if you want to see how that lines up, if this tail cam segment here is vertical, then you have whatever that is, 3/8 of an inch between that and the tail of the ski. So boom, we have that. We're just going to flip our ski over. So we've ascertained the right length. We're good lengthwise. So at this point, we're just going to take our handy dandy rubberized cyanoacrylate, otherwise known as super glue. And you can see I double stick taped it to this flat surface, in this case a yogurt container lid, just so it doesn't tip over inadvertently. So it is messy, you can see I have some stains on my fingers, so you want to limit any spillage. Pretty handy stuff. Also, just a disclaimer, you want to keep it so that it's, you're going to be doing this, I'm assuming, in a spot that's not the center of your kitchen with the Cuisinart and all that. Common sense. So I'm just applying a little super glue on either border of the double stick tape, and I'm just going to apply a little pressure for a little bit, for about a minute. So I've just applied pressure to the glue zone there and flipped the ski over. And I'm just eyeballing. There's always one border, even if the skin is centered on the tip loop and the tail cam is centered on the tail, which obviously you should do that. There's still always a little sticking more on one side than the other. So I'll just keep that in mind. In this case, it's this edge. Okay, I've got that going. That's the edge I'm going to trim first. That's where the little excess is, and it'll equal out. I take my trim tool, and remember, you always want to trim with the plush. So you start from here on this side and from here on that side. You don't want to flip it around, even if you're right or left-handed. And to start the tool, you just kind of jostle it a little bit and get it going. It's quite sharp, so you're not going to have any problems there. And unlike glued skins, you don't have that stick factor. What I like to do is drag my hand as I'm doing it. And you can actually get away without clamping it. But since I do have clamps in your kit, just clamp those on there. Gives you a little bit more security. I'm used to not using them. Go ahead and fold that over if you need to. Put 3 or 4 clamps on just to keep that stationary. And cut right along that line. Okay? And as you can see, I disengaged the brake. You always want to do that. There we go on one. Disengage the clamps. And then we're just going to take, in order to have the right offset, it's perfect if you just take the edge, which is now exposed, I'm just pulling this back, and another edge's width away from the edge, namely 2 edges width from the outboard edge. We're just going to pull that skin over, and once we trim the other side, that equates to having an edge's width of offset, namely 1 edge exposed on either side of the skin. Okay, just going to rearrange my blocks here. I didn't remind you to ideally have something elevated like this, like blocks, books stacked up, something like that would be handy. So I'm just going to trim the other side now. Again, I've just offset this side that I've already trimmed 2 edges width from the outboard edge, and I'm just going to trim this one. I like to just sort of hold the trimmed tail